Hello everyone, welcome to week 4. I hope you're all fine during the hurricane time, and please take care of yourself and your loved ones, and I'm sure all of us will come out of this very strongly. This is week 4, so we are going to actually continue with CSS. We're not going to cover a lot of material. I'm just going to continue with the lectures, but I just want you guys to focus more on the CSS and kind of get a hands on it and know how you have to deal with it. So the main thing we are going to cover is going to be few topics, such as how to define list styles, how we work with margins and padding spaces, how we can use pseudo classes and pseudo elements, and how we can actually insert page content into the CSS with the CSS. So let's look at how we can format the list. List markers, basically they are default browser style symbols that they can be displayed before each list items for both ordered lists as well as unordered lists. To change the type of list markers or to prevent any display of a list marker, we can use the syntax list style type and then the type. The type could vary, and we have various type of list markers. So these are basically the list style type: disk, circle, square, decimal, and none, for instance. So let's look at the example here. So this is the syntax that we have, and so we put list style type and then we put none because we don't want any type of a marker to be displayed. So again, we could put disk and you will get this. You could put circle and you will get this. You can put lower Roman and you will get this style markers. Also, we can use images for list markers as well. This graphic image for the list marker, you can actually put, this is the syntax for it, list style image, and then you put the URL, and inside you can put the image name with the extension, if it's a PNG, if it's a GIF, or if it's a JPEG. So, and the URL, basically, as we said, it's the file. So this is an example here that we have. So it displayed this picture. So we put the name of the file here. So this is another example. Again, the syntax, list style image, and then URL, and then we put the name of the file. So in this case, arrow.png. So we can actually set the list marking position. CSS treats each list item as a block level element and place kind of a virtual box around it, and the default is placed outside. So to change the default behavior, we can actually put use this type of a syntax and put position in there. So the position could be either outside or inside. So let's look at the example in this case. So this is the first, when we have the outside. As you can see, these are the virtual box around each list items is here, and this is outside. But in here, you have the list style position inside. So this is the difference between the two of them. Okay, the next thing that we are going to cover is how to work with margins as well as paddings. Block level elements follow the structure of the box model, as you could see in the previous slide. Content in the box model are basically enclosed with the series of concentrated box. The content of the element inside, the padding space, which extends from element's content to a border. So the padding space is extending from the element's content to the border. So let's look at this here. So this is the padding, this is border, and this is margin. And we will talk about what is border. Border is basically surrounding the padding. And then the margin space is comprised of the space beyond the border up to the next page element. So this is basically showing you the padding, border, and margin in here. As we said, block level elements follow the box model. Content in the box model, as we said, is basically enclosed with the content element and the padding space. So this is an example that we can see in here. In order to set the width of the padding space, we can use the size. So we have the padding size, where size is expressed in one of the CSS units of length, or basically keyword auto, to let the browser automatically be able to choose the padding space. So this is the example here that we have. So this is select unordered list within the navigation nav elements. So you have the line height, the 2EM, and then you have the list style type to none, and then padding left 5 pixels. So set the padding on the left edge to 5 pixels. So you can put that in there, or you can put it to the auto, so it will automatically set it with the browser. So that's what we have. Or you can put padding left. You can use this unit as well, the EM. And you have to play around with it to see how it moves up and down, so you get a sense of which unit you want to use and whatever you are more comfortable with, either the pixel or the EM unit. So to set the size of margin around the block level element, we use also the margin size. So we could use top, right, bottom, or left for the margin. So these are the options that we will have. To set the size of the border space, we can also put border width size again. Again, we can use top, right, bottom, left. So that's what we have in here. Sets the margin space on the top of the edge to 20 pixels. So we can use either EM or the pixel again. The next thing that we are going to cover, we are going to talk about pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So for pseudo class, it classifies an element based on its current status, position, or the way we use it in the document. So the element, we can put the syntax as element, column, pseudo class. So what is the element? Element is an element from the document, and pseudo class is the name of the CSS pseudo class. We have also a structure pseudo class, which classify an element based on the location within the structure of the HTML documents that would be. So let's look at the syntax here, an example. So we have again that for the pseudo class, we use the selector, pseudo class style, and in here we have for our unordered list, we are using the pseudo class style in here, hover, and then we have the different type of style. So we can put the background color, the color, and all that in there. Here are the list of the pseudo class says that are basically supported with CSS. So we have root, empty, only child, first child, and so for example, you can see the definition for each of them that you can have. And here is an example of how we use them. So if you want to use first of type, you can put it in here. So for example, for that is the first descendant of the parent that matches the specific type. So you can use that in there. Here, so these are basically the pseudo classes that are being supported with CSS. And in here we have them as well. So in here we are basically applying these pseudo class to the list items. So in here we are using the first of type. Select the first list item from the unordered list in the about CSS article, the name of the CSS. And then in here, we use this. This is the image we are going to use for the first list item. So in here, again, we have another one. We have the select the second item, and here select the last item from the list. So a dynamic pseudocode, a pseudo class, which we have used hover before in previous slides, is basically a type of pseudo class in which the class can change the state based on the action of the user. So for example, if we have the hover, the mouse pointer is hovering over the element. So for example, it can change the color. We can put hover, for example, red. So it would change the color once we put the cursor there. So it would change the color to red or blue or whatever. For example, if we use the link, so if the link hasn't been visited yet, it would be one color and then it will change. So what is the pseudo element? Is an object that exists only in the rendered page. Pseudo elements can be selected using these CSS selectors. So we can have the element, column, and then the pseudo element. So again, the element is an element from the HTML file, and the pseudo element is the name of the CSS pseudo element. So this element. So in here we have the pseudo elements. So the first letter, first line, before and after. So let's look at the example here. So in here we can, the first example is basically you are going to use the style rule that matches the first display line of every paragraph. So the first display line of every paragraph in the rendered web page, and transform the text of that line into the uppercase. So that's what we have in there. So look at the second one. So we are going to match the first letter of every paragraph within a block code and display the characters in a Time New Romance that is 250% larger than the surrounding text. So that's what we have. So in this example, we are going to use the Times Roman, and that is 250% larger than the surrounding text. So just remember that pseudo element is more specific than the pseudo classes. So we have again some examples here. First letter, we put P, first letter, the font size 200% for instance. For the first line, we can put that. Again, it depends what you want to put, but that's the way, the syntax we are going to use. And then before, for example, we can use P, before, content special. And then the after, again, you can use anything here. And it depends what you want to put. Now let's look at generating content with CSS. Another type of pseudo element is used to generate basically the content. So the new content can be either added before or after an element using these type of syntax. So we are using element, column, before, content, text, or also we use the same syntax but we use the word after. So what is the text? The text is the content to be inserted into the rendered web page. So this is again these type of pseudocode we can use to generate content for the web page. The content property supports several type of text content. So these are basically the value could be none. The description set the content to an empty text. We can put counter, text, display the specific text, or open code, or close code, or URL, which is display the content of the image, media, or video. So let's look at displaying attribute value. The content property can be used to insert an attribute value into the rendered web page using the function. So we use the content, the syntax would be content, column, and then we have the in here, and then the attribute in there, semicolon, where that attribute is attribute of the selected element. So that attribute is the attribute of selected element. So this is the example here. We have the A, and then we have the after, we use after, for example, and then the content here. So then we have the href, where this href will be written like this. So in this case, this link will be displayed in the rendered web pages as just triathlons, with that HTTP code. This technique is actually useful for printout output, in which if you want to have the URL of the link display on the printed page for the users to be able to read and have it as a reference. The next thing that we are going to look is the inserting quotation marks. The last thing we are going to cover is inserting quotation marks. The block code and queue elements are basically used for coded materials. So the decorative opening and closing quotation mark can be inserted using the content property. So you have the content property, the syntax would be this, column open quote, and also the content, column close quote. So let's look at the example here. So the first example in here, as you see, it's a block of code. So we have the character codes for the and curly quotes, so that we can use these ones. So the actual code that are used for opening and closing quotation mark, we use the codes. The first column open, and then the second one is close. So in this example here that we have for 201C and 201D, basically we have the text screen as open. The first one is open, the second one is closed. So in this example, the character code 201C returns the opening curly double quote, and the code 201D returns the closing curly double quote. Then the next statement, we have the before pseudo element in there, and then for the content, we actually use the open quote to display the open quote character before each block quote. And then we use the formatting, the style that we use in there. And then again, we have the after pseudo element, which in there we use display the close quote character after each block quote. So we use the close quote character after each block quote as well in this example. The exercise that you're going to do for this is basically complete the tutorial to section 2.3 and then zip the whole folder and upload your zip file basically on the canvas. So basically what you have to do, finish the 2.3, and then you can actually finish all the tutorials for this section, for section 2.3 only, and then upload it as a zip file. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this week's lecture, and please remember that we have a very quick quiz which has 7 questions in it, and please do that as well after you finish the tutorial. Have a great weekend and be safe. Bye-bye.